What is a near-death experience that you had that you didn't realize was near-death until some time had passed? At about 7 or 8 I used to stick my head in between the ladder rungs underwater in the pool. My head barely fit in or out. Don't know why I did it, just dumb kid crap. I just had a minor panic attack imagining this happening to my kid and me not being able to get him unstuck. I was 8. Fell off the top of a 15-foot stone wall into the base of a 15-foot waterfall. I kept calling for my older brother to come get me, but he couldn't hear over the noise of the falls. I couldn't go downstream because of the rocks, and the water was over my head at the base of the falls. So I just climbed up the stone wall. The stones were mostly flat so it wasn't that hard, though they were slippery. I didn't understand why my parents were so freaked out. Only as an adult did I realize that it was because I was in danger and could have easily died. Crap, that's intense. I was out drinking with a friend of mine. I apparently spilled a drink on a girl who was behind me. Heard a bunch of yelling in Turkish or Arabic. A guy grabbed me from behind and held something to my neck. Like Brock fricking Samson, my friend comes out of nowhere and punches the dude. Unconscious. One hit. Dude had a 4-inch blade near pressed against my throat. Man, I hope you brought your buddy a drink, haha. I don't know if I would have died, but I would have been messed up afterwards. I was in Mexico, some border town on the Texas border, with some friends when I was in my early 20s. This was around 2004. We had been partying all night, eating tacos from street vendors, doing the two-step, and we ended up in a strip club that doubled as a brothel. The taxi driver told us to go straight into the strip club and not go up the road, because that area was Boys Town, and it's where all the drug dealers and thugs carried on. I remember looking in that direction and seeing a dark alleyway with 2 guys smoking cigarettes. I could barely see the orange embers in their hands. My friends and I went into the club and did whatever drunk guys do in Mexico, and as we are coming out those 2 guys were still there and they yelled something derogatory to a girl we were with. It was something in Spanish so I don't know what it was exactly, but I know it wasn't a compliment. In my drunken confidence I yelled something back and got into the backseat of the taxi. The next thing I know the 2 guys are opening up the cab door, but the taxi driver runs out and slams the door shut before they can pull me out. He said something to these guys on my behalf. They left us alone. The next morning when we get back across the border, my friends and I are talking about what happened when I realize how close I was to getting in serious trouble with those 2 guys. This town had tons of murders and drugs running through it, no surprise in Mexico, and I knew I was lucky for getting out of there alive. That probably took a lot of balls from the taxi driver to risk getting injured for some drunk American, assuming American, spouting off. Cross-country practice during my senior year of high school. Right at the beginning of the run, I get stung by something. Never saw it, just smacked it and kept going. I am not allergic to bees, I thought. 3 miles later I come to the end of the course and feel the backs of my ears starting to heat up, followed by the rest of my body. I think nothing of it and decide to keep on going. My friend notices that I am not looking so well and brings this up to the coach. He says maybe you should go. I am not feeling so well, so I call my mom and tell her I am coming home. While on the way home, I notice I am not breathing so well. Each breath is getting tighter and tighter, and my body is still heating up. I am doing about 70 in a 40-mile-an-hour zone hoping that some police officer will pull me over. But no, the one time there isn't a cop waiting to pull somebody over is when I needed one. Either way, I call my mom again and she says go straight to the hospital. So I do. I arrive at the hospital, park and walk into the main entrance. There is just one guy behind the counter and by this point I look terrible. I tell him that I think I need a doctor. He had guessed that much, and he grabs a wheelchair and brings me over to the emergency room, making polite small talk the entire way. I sit down in the emergency room just as my mother walks in, and at this point I can see she has a horrified expression on her face. They ask me to stand up and come to the desk, and at this point my vision goes. Literally I cannot see a thing. The room just went black. The doctors grab me a different wheelchair and bring me back to her private room. While going over to the room, I asked for a bucket because I needed to vomit. After vomiting my vision comes back and I look into the bucket to see that the vomit was black. Turns out it was blood. The doctors put me into a bed and give me an IV filled with what generally fills an EpiPen, plus a few other things. My mother later told me that I had swollen up so much I looked like a 90-year-old man. After my swelling went down and breathing got easier, everything went back to normal. I felt okay and ended up going home that same night. I was fine and just told to keep an eye on myself, and if anything doesn't feel right I need to go back to the emergency room. Later the doctor said if I had come about 10 minutes later, there is a good chance I could have died. So, it is clear now that I have some severe allergies to stinging insects. I would also like to make it clear to anyone reading this, that if you experience something like this, make sure that somebody else drives you to the hospital. If my vision had gone while I was behind the wheel, I probably would have seriously hurt myself and somebody else. I was on a ship that was hit by an oil tanker in the middle of the night. The next day I discovered that the 315,000 DWT oil tanker had stopped maybe 4 feet from my head where I was asleep in my quarters. I was 21 and just had emergency surgery for an ectopic pregnancy. Due to my age and that I looked well after surgery, I was placed in a normal recovery wing of the hospital. Sometime between 1 AM to 7 AM all of my memories stop, so apparently I called my boyfriend, now husband, and told him that there was a midget with an orange peel hat in my room and he would not stop bothering me. I wanted him to come and make him stop. He knew something was wrong and rushed back to the hospital. The nurse on call checked my blood oxygen level and it read 29. It should have read 98/100. She thought this was a bad meter and went to find another one. When that one read the same, she checked it on herself. After my husband suggested she do so, it worked. After putting me on oxygen, I remember waking up and seeing all my loved ones around me, and the nurse attempting to shove a needle in my arm, since I was being rushed to ICU. Turns out due to my blood loss which had filled up my chest cavity, causing my lungs to stop working properly, and I ended up with adult respiratory distress syndrome. Spent 2 weeks in the ICU. Walked home from the bar last weekend drunk as heck, by myself, without a phone, and wind chill below zero. There's been at least 5 kids around here that have froze to death doing the same thing just this year. After a lifetime of drinking cranberry juice and eating cranberry sauce and loving them, I was drinking rum and cranberry one night and couldn't breathe. Took 2 Benadryls and got really high. While taking them though, I was looking in the mirror and took off my shirt. I was red all the way down to my belly button. Laid down. Got my breathing back in order. Next day realized that I am suddenly allergic to cranberry. That freaking sucks, dude. Cranberries are awesome. At least you didn't die. I passed out in childbirth from lack of oxygen. I rolled my car at 80 miles per hour on the dual carriageway once. I didn't even know I rolled until somebody told me. Everyone who saw it was telling me I was lucky to be alive, but at the time, I was just frickin' pee that I totaled my car. Crap dude, you almost died. Where's my car? Frick. When I was being born, I got into distress and swallowed the meconium. I wasn't breathing for a few minutes while they suctioned it all out of my lungs and was eventually put on a respirator. I recovered and was allowed home after a month, but they were unable to tell whether or not I would be mildly brain damaged. Luckily I knew I'm fine now for the mouse part. I laughed my ass off at the end, thanks OP. Now I feel bad. In high school we were all hanging out in the parking lot next to this tree. We decided to go to the store and grab a snack because one person was hungry. 3 of us almost didn't go, but at the last second we changed our minds. 5 minutes later we hear a loud crash coming from the direction we just were. We can over and saw a car had hit the tree. It took me a while to realize that if I had chosen to stay there, I would be dead. I almost fell out of the Batman ride at Six Flags New England. I used to be pretty overweight, and the shoulder piece that is supposed to hold you in never clicked in place. There was a small strap that you'd also snap in place that was sort of like the seatbelt in a high chair at restaurants. Not the most sturdy thing. When we started going, on the first loop, my shoulder straps had a lot of give, but I didn't think much of it. We immediately went on again, and this time, the shoulder straps clicked in place and didn't wiggle at all, so I had only been held in by this tiny plastic and ribbon buckle. I was riding the Titan at Six Flags over Texas, and immediately after the initial huge drop, The freaking bar in my lap just popped up and would not close again. I held the bar for dear life, and the other riders held on to me for dear life. I almost pooped. A few summers ago I was drinking and boating with some friends in a lake in upstate New York. At one point the engine actually fell from the boat into the water and stalled. It was a pull start but the plastic handle had fallen off, so I had to tie the wet rope around my hand and pull in order to start the engine. It was full of water, so it took quite a few tugs to start her up. The wet rope had cut through into the flesh of my fingers. It didn't really hurt and I had a full head of steam, so I just threw some peroxide and bandage on it. Went about my weekend. A couple days later I was driving to the beach and I noticed a weird sunburn running along my arm. It looked like stripes running up my arm in a winding fashion. An hour or so later the red stripes had moved a bit further up my arm. This alarmed my aunt, who brought me straight to the hospital. The doctor marked the position of the stripes with a marker and started collecting my billing info, etc. By the time they were ready to give me my first IV of antibiotics, the stripes had moved up to just past my shoulder. At this point I still felt fine physically and I didn't know what the big deal was. They told me I would have to stay overnight in the emergency room for more drugs. No beach for me tonight. They gave me a few doses of clindamycin with no response. 3 days later, after several bags of Vanco and clindamycin and a consult with a CDC doctor, I was released from the hospital and went on my merry way. I didn't realize until after that I had a very serious and deadly blood infection. The doctor told my aunt that if I had waited a few more hours I would have been in the hospital for weeks to months, and that if I waited more than a day or so I would have died. Good thing I showed my aunt those weird stripes. This thread was created for me. When I was 7 or 8 I fell through a lake in Golden Gate Park that had frozen over. Luckily my sister and brother were there to pull me out. About 10 or 11 I almost fell off a cliff in Mill Valley. CA as a deer trail gave way beneath my weight. My brother and his buddy were nearby and grabbed me as I clung to bushes, flowers, roots that were giving way. My brother reminded me of how serious close a call that one was recently. Just a couple years ago. I'm 30 now. I dove about 8 feet off a cliff into a river, South Yuba Fork, and hit a boulder that was just about 3 feet underwater. My buddies said I came up and just exploded blood from the gash in my forehead and was just covered in red. If you want more, just say so. Maybe you should just stay inside. My buddy was driving our friend's car. I was in the passenger seat. We'd run out of smokes and were headed into town to get some more. We're doing 70 or so coming up a hill and the car spins out. We hit a telephone pole on the side of the car and spun out some more. My thought process was, crap, now I gotta walk back and get my car so we can go get some smokes. Anyway, after we look at it, I realize that we hit the pole just behind the passenger door. If it had been a foot further towards the front, I would have been kissing that pole. To top it off, we were about 15 feet from a frozen over pond. If we hadn't hit that pole, we'd have been in the pond for sure. My friend's dad used to take me and my friend to school. As usual, I took that time to sleep some more. So we reach the destination and I come out of the car from the roadway. The next thing I remember is that my face is pressed against a windshield and a pale woman is watching me. I come down from the car and continue to waddle towards school like nothing happened. Also, when I was like 5 years old I climbed on a closet to find some chocolate, but the closet was not fixed to wall so it fell on me, but closet doors opened and thanks to that I survived. I was under the closet for an hour because my mother and grandmother were cleaning onions outside. I have been hit by a bus. I guess that's all. You should probably start looking both ways before crossing the street. Made the mistake of bringing up a friend raised by hex angels in a conversation with a member of the Outlaws at a dodgy strip club on the wrong side of the tracks once. He was surprisingly laid back about it, but in retrospect, that could have gone badly. Not me, but my cousin fell out of a 3-story building window when he was a baby. I believe he ended up falling and landing on one of those fabric awnings on the floors below. Luckily, a man passing by had actually seen my cousin fall out from the beginning and was already lining up to catch him. He was caught after rolling off of the awning. Also, the same cousin opened the door in a moving car and fell out. He was fine. You are some very lucky and lucky bastards. I was 4 and had gotten a miniature backyard golf set for Christmas. When family came over in the afternoon, I ran inside to get it and show everyone. I couldn't carry all the plastic flagpoles and clubs, so I put what I could in my hands and then stuck a flagpole in my mouth. As I ran outside, I tripped on a tree stump and fell straight forward onto the flagpole, which shot into the back of my mouth and snapped. 2 potential death scenarios were avoided. The broken pole missed an artery by less than a centimeter, and B, had the pole been made of wood, it would not have snapped and shot up through my brain. At the time, I was more concerned with the fact that my throat was sore and I couldn't eat the jelly beans the doctor had given me. This might not quite fit your criteria, but it's still a hair-raising story in the same vein. So I was driving in super heavy fast-moving traffic in the DFW Metroplex, just past the 635 exit going south on 75. The kind of traffic they'd have in heck, I'm telling you. 70 miles an hour, full grid, mere feet between cars. Now, I'm fairly used to traffic like this, so it's just another day for me. I'm behind a large extended cab truck full of furniture that, in a word, was poorly freaking secured. I've got my hand out the window tapping the beat of the song I'm listening to, Go With The Flow by Kotsar, and I look down at my passenger floorboard for the briefest of moments because the wind is whipping around an old hamburger wrapper and it's frankly detracting me more than it should. During the quarter of a second I'm looking down, I feel something brush the tips of my fingers outside the window. My first thought was, AWW, grow, someone threw trash out the window. I look in my rear window and see a box spring mattress cartwheeling through road with cars swerving and crashing. Nothing crazy like flipping or tumbling, but lots of side and bumper contact. All the blood in my body freezes. I look back forward at the truck in front of me and it's stopping and trying to pull over. It's missing the mattress it had stacked on the top just seconds before. I swerve to avoid rear-ending them and suddenly find myself the only car for hundreds of meters behind, still driving. I keep my car very clean now. TLDR. I avoided a wreck by my sense of touch. You avoided it from your sense of touch but almost got involved due to your trash. That's pretty intense. You have been visited by the ingenious Joe comment brain, so you always see the glass half full. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.